How to Argue with a Cat. Chapter 5. Earn Loyalty. The Virtuous Scratch. Wield the Tools of Character. At this point, you may be wondering, when will we get to the persuasion part? What about the killer logic, the deadly phrase, the witty line that stops your opponent in his tracks? We'll get to logic and wit later in the book. But ask yourself, have you ever had a logical argument with a cat? Has a cat ever laughed at your fine wit? Thought not. Those skills do come in handy, especially if you argue with a human now and then. We'll even show you how to use logic with a cat. But the most important tools of persuasion have to do with whether your opponent thinks you're worth rubbing up to. You want him to think you're agreeable, that you fit in with the herd. You want him to feel less angry by thinking about the future. And most of all, you want him to like and trust you. That's what this chapter is about. Both cats and humans prefer listening to people they think have a good character. We're sure you are a perfectly nice person. You love cats, don't you? That right there makes you a nice person. But being good is not enough. You have to make strangers and angry cats think of you as a good egg. This takes some persuasion. The good news is, once your audience likes and trusts you, not only will they listen to you, they will often do what you want. Even sometimes if your audience is a cat. So let's look at how to polish your character. Call it your image, if you like. The ancient Greeks called it ethos. It means character, as other people in cats see it. A great ethos makes a great leader. Someone so well liked and trusted that all sorts and species want to follow her. To earn a first-class ethos, you need to work on 3 traits of leadership: caring, craft, and cause. Always provide a lap. Caring has to do with making your audience believe you put its interests ahead of your own. You want only what's best for them, even if that means giving up your favorite chair, or sacrificing a sweater to make the perfect curl-up blanket. This is often harder to do with people. Cats almost always let you know what's in their best interest. People, not so much. You can feed a spouse at the same time every day, and that still might not earn her loyalty. She may really want a vacation, or praise for getting a promotion at work, or your awareness that her hair looks different. That's why the first job of caring, ethos-wise, is to discover your audience's interest. What do they want? Doctors sometimes make the mistake of thinking it's enough to write a prescription. Most patients also want attention. So do most cats. When an uncaring doctor makes a mistake, he is much more likely to get sued. Patients will cut a caring doctor more slack. And what's a caring doctor? One who spends more time with the patient than he's required to, or who understands why it's so hard to stay on a diet. The same idea applies to us non-doctors. If our coworkers think we're willing to sacrifice our time and effort for them, they will cover for us when we screw up. Ditto for our bosses, not to mention politicians and other leaders. Think Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Think Mother Teresa. The first 2 caused revolutions. The third became a saint. People wanted to follow these leaders who cared about them. All 3 understood what was in the best interest of their audiences. That is how they got to be so loved. How do you get a human to think you're caring? The obvious way is actually to care. Find out what your audience needs and do your best day after day to meet those needs. But that's not persuasion, which works faster. To persuade someone that you are a caring person, you need to do 2 things. First, show you understand. Second, offer to make some little sacrifice. Caring girlfriend? Why don't I skip the bonfire party and help you study? Be careful. Sympathy does more for your ethos than just fixing the problem. And definitely don't just give advice. Girlfriend. My back is killing me from stacking those shelves. Boyfriend. You need to go to the gym more. Get those back muscles in shape. And maybe lose a few pounds while you're at it. This does not help your ethos. Instead, look sad and offer a massage. A cat does not need such complicated psychology. To get your cat to think you have a caring ethos, just stay at home. Never go on a business trip or a vacation. Drop whatever you're doing whenever a lap is needed. Get off the phone with your boss and open a can of tuna. See what we're doing here? We show that we understand what's in the cat's best interest. And we let the cat know we're willing to do whatever it takes to meet those needs, those interests. This does not mean giving in to every request. A cat is smart enough to know that some unpleasant things are in his best interest. Suppose he's a knucklehead who swallows ribbons. He won't resent you if you pull a ribbon out of his gullet now and then. And he will probably understand if you keep the ribbons in a locked drawer. It may sound hard to convince a cat that you care only for her, but a true cat lover knows that it's much easier to convince a cat of your love than a human. A cat simply assumes there's no one else in your life. A human will always wonder. The exact right place to scratch. Craft means making an audience believe you're really good at the important stuff. You know what to do on every occasion. The ancients called this trait practical wisdom. That's because craft is more than book learning. It takes practical experience for a teacher to know just when his students are getting bored and to know what to do to get their attention back. A medical student can get an A in anatomy class and still not be ready to perform an appendectomy. Craft, practical wisdom, takes study plus experience. With humans, you can give the impression of craft without teaching a class or taking out an appendix. One way is to use jargon, the right jargon. If you don't know the special words that a group uses, don't talk too much. Listen for those words and the way the group uses them. You can hurt the craft part of your ethos by using the wrong words. Older people make younger people laugh when they say they'll Twitter the news. Far better to learn what Snapchat is. If you want to impress someone with your car knowledge, know the difference between a lug wrench and a socket wrench, and know which one can help replace the shocks. Cats are not so much concerned about words. To a cat, of course, the most important thing of all is to serve the cat. A person who does good craft knows exactly the right place to scratch a particular cat. That person also provides food exactly on time, and sometimes early. The right toys get bought, the beds are comfortable and never in a cold place. Want a person to trust you? Use the right words to send a group email. Want a cat to trust you? Deal with that over-friendly dog, the one with no cat manners. Either way, you show you know what you're doing. That's craft. The smell test. Cause has to do with your ability to represent a good thing. You stand for something larger than the usual day-to-day concerns. Corporations often try to convince us that they represent good causes and don't just grub after profits. Banks talk about giving customers freedom. Fast food joints fight for your right to have anything you want on your hamburger. Fancy cars and watches represent quality in an ugly, underdesigned world. And many of us fall for that stuff, spending more money than we should because we believe we're giving money to a good thing, and that makes us feel good ourselves. In rhetoric, cause is called virtue. These days, we think virtue describes an old-fashioned kind of girl. Does anybody even talk about virtue anymore? But in the really old days, the old days of 1,000 and more years ago, virtue was something men were supposed to have even more than women. It meant standing for something bigger than themselves. While caring is about the interest of your audience, cause is about a higher interest, such as God, country, the environment, or rescuing stray cats. In other words, cause is about values. Not your values necessarily, the audience's values. Suppose your audience thinks that jobs are more important than the environment. You will not help your ethos by talking about saving the whales. Far better to talk about providing jobs for everybody. Does that mean you should be a chameleon? Pretend you stand for things you don't care about? Or worse, go against your own beliefs? No, but it does mean understanding what your audience values, and it means honoring those values. If what your audience values is evil, then maybe you shouldn't be talking to those people in the first place. But if you simply don't share those same values, then you can still honor them. They're good people doing the best they can. Some people think football is a bad sport. Kids get hurt and the music is terrible. Other people think football is what made America great. You can hate football and still honor football fans for loving football. That's rhetoric at its best. You don't have to pretend to like football. If you honor the fans, they will think you are a virtuous person. But you still need to make that audience believe you stand for something. Just make sure you stand for values that you both share. So you don't like football. Maybe you love nachos or cheerleaders, or maybe you tear up at the national anthem. That's a cause a lot of audiences can believe in. Your ethos is getting better already. Cats are harder to convince this way. They can see right through a cause unless it has to do with good things like food and laughs. That's partly because cats think about good and bad people more simply than the rest of us. If you smell like family, you're family. And smelling like family means hanging around a lot because that's what family does. Humans develop loyalties to one another based on the movies they like and how they feel about immigration and taxes. But that doesn't really do much to separate the good from the bad. Maybe we need to develop more of a cat's sense of smell. Caring, craft, and cause are the three traits that cats and people use to judge character. The difference is that you can fake these things with humans. Human rhetoric is all about the impression you make, whether it's true or not. Now, it is easier to give a good impression if you really are a good person, but think of all those politicians who get themselves elected. All those false prophets and gangsters and super salespeople with dark hearts who make people love them. Abraham Lincoln said that you can't fool all of the people all of the time. He was setting a pretty low bar for humanity. While you can fool all of the people some of the time, and some of the people all of the time, you cannot fool a single cat for very long. If you are not a good cat person, he will see right through you. He will know you're not a good person. So the best way to gain the love and respect of a cat is to practice genuine caring, craft, and cause. Devote yourself to a cat. Be excellent at play and mealtimes, and mostly, be there. When it comes to cats, that's your cause. People, being people, need to practice more of the rhetorical arts to gain respect. Suppose you're a genuinely good person, good at what you do, and you get far too little appreciation for it. You need to monitor how well you project your concern for others, your ability to solve problems on the fly, and your fight for a greater good. Check your resume and see if it projects all three traits. When you do a good thing, don't just do it in front of the mirror. Let people see your wonderfulness. It will do wonders for your reputation among humans, but not among cats. Cat wisdom. Virtue lies in steady habits. Sleep, eat, and do everything else regularly at the same exact time each day. Habits are what make cats so virtuous.